Today's gospel is all about the meaning of success. What is your personal definition of success? A short while ago, my wife and I were involved in binge watching of a series that's on USA TV. We got it through Amazon. We watched the series called Suits. A lot of people don't recognize that, but they recognize it perhaps by the fact that one of the stars of that series was Meghan Markle, now the princess. But Suits is all about a fictional New York law firm and its principles and the way in which they operated. Winning and success were the driving motivations behind all of their actions. It was okay to be scheming. It was okay to use leverage against someone who perhaps had compromised some principle along the way. Success was all that mattered. Success was then shown by being made a partner or senior partner, or finally the epitome of success was having your name on the wall as a named partner. This, of course, is fiction. It's not to be taken literally, but it's somewhat of a representation of what takes place out there in the real world. I know there probably are lawyers here, and I don't want to paint the lawyers with all that broad brush. Take it for what it's worth. It's fiction. We can expect that kind of thinking from the world, but we are here in church, and a different set of values should prevail among us. As Christians, when we're looking for advice on how to live, it's Jesus that we ought to turn to. I think we would all agree that he was an expert on life. He knew how to live. It was a specialty of his. In just a few short years, he lived a life and built a life that has had a lasting impact on the world. What did success mean to Jesus? In today's gospel, he was teaching his disciples on the way to Capernaum about how he would be suffering a cruel death and that he would be rising from the dead 3 days later. His disciples weren't getting any of this. They were preoccupied with their own discussion among themselves of who was the greatest. They were just as confused as we are today with what is that meaning of success. Jesus deliberately was taking this journey to Jerusalem where he knew the cost. He knew that he would be facing a horrible death. But his disciples failed to understand anything of his message. Their own goals of gaining prominence and prestige blinded them to what Jesus was teaching. Jesus heard their discussion, and he told them exactly how to resolve this question. He said, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." There's a story that illuminates the meaning of success in the kingdom of God. It's a story of an old monk who prayed and prayed for a vision that would give him something from God and strengthen his faith. After many years, it still did not come, and he was despairing. The old monk had almost given up when one day the vision appeared. In the middle of the vision, though, the monastery bell rang. He knew what this meant was that the poor people were out at the gate of the monastery waiting to be fed. They gathered every day to be fed by the monastery. Today happened to be the old monk's turn to do it. If he failed to show up, he knew that they would probably just leave quietly, thinking that the monastery didn't have anything to give them today. He was really torn between his heavenly vision and his earthly duty. Before the bell stopped, he had to make a decision. With a heavy heart, he turned his back on the vision, off to feed the poor. He returned about an hour later, and when he opened the door, he could hardly believe what he was seeing. There in the room, the vision was waiting for him. "My son," it said, "if you had not gone off to feed the poor, I would not have stayed. This story bears a striking resemblance to today's gospel. Like the disciples, the monk learned the most important spiritual lesson of his life. He learned that the best way to serve God is not necessarily to give up everything, and it's not necessarily to turn your back on the world, go off to the monastery, and it's not even necessary to spend hours in prayer contemplating heavenly visions. No, the best way of serving God is something much more basic. To reach out in service, especially to those people who are less gifted and perhaps less fortunate than we are. Jesus taught his disciples this lesson: whoever wants to be first must be last of all and be servant of all. Think about who are the most important people in your own lives. I guess they might not be either rich or famous. If they were, these wouldn't be the things that really mattered to you anyway. I can't tell you the names of those people, but I can probably tell you what they did. They may have taken care of you when you were not able to take care of yourselves, taught you how to read and write, spent time with you when you were lonely, corrected you when you went astray, and put you on a path and encouraged you to follow the right path. The most important people in your life are those who helped you to be gentle with yourself. In other words, they were your servant. So this strange concept taught by Jesus many years ago is really not so strange at all. The meaning of success is service. Here's what Albert Schweitzer, a famous theologian, philosopher, and Nobel Prize winner, had to say on this subject. He said, "I don't know what your destiny will be, but one thing I know, the only ones of you who will be really happy are those who sought and found how to serve." So as we continue our prayer today, let us remember to thank those who have been servant to us, and then seek and find our own path to happiness through service to others.